Thank you. All righty. All right. Opening. Good evening and welcome to our April 27th Finance Committee meeting. In accordance with an act. And welcome to. Is that working? There was some weird good there. Am I good now? I'll start again at the beginning. Okay. In accordance with an act to implement provisions necessary to the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of Maine in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, as enacted and read, Section G11 MRSA, Section 403-A, public proceedings through remote access during declaration of a state of emergency to COVID-19 and for 30 days following the termination of that state of emergency, the Finance Committee will meet through Google Meet. This meeting will be live streamed and available for viewing at www.msad11.org. Call to order. Pat, would you mind reading the roll?
Yes. Becky Pless.
Yay.
Nicole Medora.
Yay.
Alyssa Tracy. She notified us that she'll be joining us around 6 p.m. James Lothridge.
Yay.
Patrick Saucier.
Yay.
Cullen McGuff.
Yay.
Great. That's everyone, Becky.
Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is the 2021-22 budget discussion. You've all received today from Andrea the budget printout for each item on the agenda for tonight. So hopefully you've had a moment to look at them. If not, we will go over them now. So the first one is the adult education budget 2021-2022. So I will pass it over to Pat and Andrea to go through this with us in a much more articulate way than I can.
Well, actually, I think we're going to turn it over to Josh first. As the adult ed director, Josh has joined us, and he is going to walk you through his proposed budget. So, Josh, are you all set?
Thank you, Josh.
Damn. Yes. The mute button wasn't working. Thanks, Pat. Becky. So, as you can see, I think I'll refer to the budget worksheet that Andrea did. Thank you, Andrea. Which summarizes nicely kind of where we're looking at changes. This year, we are looking at a slight reduction in subsidy from the state by about $5,000. The overall cost to taxpayers is the same as it was last year. This year, we do not have any, we have very limited enrichment going on. So the revenue that we typically bring in there, we are not bringing in, but we have saved some money. We didn't fill our evening administrative assistant position this year because that primarily deals with the enrichment that happens at night. And we didn't have those extra people in the building. So what you'll notice in the revenue is that in order to make up for that $5,000 difference and for some other things that we'll get to, the revenue and in conversation with Pat and Andrea, we have gone ahead and added in, you'll see the $30,968, which is balance forward. So a combination of funds that we have carry forward from this year is larger than it typically is to compensate for an additional math position, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and that decrease in funding. The increases this year really are around salary, and we shifted some things around to put them in the right budget line if I didn't have them in the right line. You'll see over on the side of the worksheet that the overall increase is about $13,320. What else can I say? You'll notice that under enrichment, this is interesting in the budget. On the revenue side, we budget for the trips that we have typically done and for the classes that we do. We budget about $100,000 in revenue and about $100,000 in expenses. We do not, because in adult ed, those are the things that we basically don't do if we can't pay for them. So, and they're self-funded through the registrations. So that's a little bit different than other budgets, but so that's kind of the basic overview. And like I said, thank you, Andrea. The sheet really helps put it in perspective. The questions right now about what's on the sheet.
Board members, anyone have a question or anything leap out to you?
Okay. So the primary increase is, as I said, was for a math teacher. This year, I'll give you some updates on just where adult ed is. We have around 40 HiSET students. Not all of them are active all the time. There are probably about 23 that are active right now. We have 6 college transition students doing various things, whether it be writing for college or math skills for college, or the college prep class that we do, which is kind of like a first year experience, getting ready to go to college. We have helped the high school with credit recovery this year, both myself and our teacher, Diane Bailey, who's a former director. We've helped about 13 students in credit recovery so far this year. And we have 5 high school diploma students. So those are different than the HiSET. They're trying to finish up those last few credits that they need to get their high school diploma instead of an equivalency diploma. And we're on track. We just graduated. We work with Maine General on a CNA course, and they just had 15 graduates. So we're now up to about 37 students have gone through and gotten their CNA program in that collaboration. So the one need that really has stuck out relates to the budget with the HiSET students is around math. This has been a unique year, obviously, and we have typically relied on a couple of the high school teachers and ed techs to help us support math and help students in math. Obviously, this year, things started a little differently than most years, and so we have been making do with some of the resources that we have to help with math, but we have not pulled in those teachers or that ed tech again. Therefore, we have a number of students who that's really where their gap is. They're going to need more help with that, and so I propose that we add about 12 hours of time for a part-time math person in the upcoming year to do an open math lab and to do math instruction. So I think that will help us into next year. This is a 1-year deal. In order to support that kind of position, that would be roughly $15,000 a year. And so if we're going to keep that kind of thing going, we need to find another source of income to revenue to support that. I think that we very well could go back after next year to working with some of the high school students or high school teachers or some of the ed techs that have been helping us out. But honestly, with everything up in the air, I really want to be able to provide the math support without feeling like we need to pull in that resource. But the year after, I think we could go right back to it. Unless, of course, there is another source of revenue or other areas that we might need to fill in. And if we can get the revenue, which is something I want to bring up too, then we might keep that position, but it might not just be math. And if we could get the revenue, that would be the option. So right now I'm exploring some things. The primary one that I'm looking at is operating a driver's education program, actually teaching driver's ed through adult ed. Right now we have an agreement with a local company. They're pretty sizable. They're in a number of different places. So there's always the consideration of not wanting to hurt a local business. I think there are enough wait lists in driver's ed that we probably won't be hurting them too much if we added one program. I'm in conversation with other adult eds that run a similar driver's ed program. They earn on a class that they run, they could earn around $4,000 a class. And if we could do 3 of those, that's $12,000. We're getting close to that 15 for this 10-hour position. So I don't know where it'll go. It's just something I wanted to put out there that I was exploring. And obviously it would require some upfront money, which we would look to either carry forward or other enrichment funds or other sources to try and come up with. But I don't have a complete plan for that. But so the increase this year really is that position. We do have increases to salaries as everyone and benefits and such. But we are really that math position is it for this year. So are there any questions?
Yes, Colin?
Thanks for that, Josh. Could you speak a little bit about how this budget maps to the expected number of students served? Are you going to see about an equivalent number? I just want to make sure that we're not going to underfund or overfund.
Yeah, based on, we do a quarterly report every year for the state, and our numbers in HiSET are higher than they were last year at this time, and I feel I know that we've had a handful more high school students come down our way. Not 20, but maybe 5 or 6 more than what we've seen in the past. So I'm really looking forward. I really like graduation this year to have 10 graduates. That's going to be, we've got some students who who could do it, and we could do it. I think we're going to absolutely positively have 5, no question. We have one we're 1 short of that right now. But we have others that have a couple of tough subjects for them still to test in. So we'll see. But I think the numbers will be the same, if not greater, as we get more folks who are, like, given the year we've had and and employment situation, if they don't have their high school diploma, or if they're looking to go back to college, we'll start seeing more. I mean, 6 for our CT, our college transitions group right now is more than we had last year. So I think we had 5 last year. So we're doing better in that already. And we kind of got a late start with it. So I feel like the numbers are going to be comparable, if not more. So.
Great, thank you. When I think about the lifetime outcome of not getting your high school diploma, I'm just very supportive of this work. But knowing what a weird year it's been and that you can't really forecast how it's going to shake out, I just didn't want to leave you.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So I will say, and I talked with Pat over email about this. We're looking to try and push the graduation a little later into June to give some of those students that chance to finish up. We have less of a connection with them during the summer. Not as extensive offerings. We do some, tutoring to keep them connected, but it's not like the regular year. So we want to get them graduated, because the earning potential, that gives you when you get that high school diploma, and other options that are there for people, we want to get it to them. So, so we're looking at the 23rd of June, which is later than we would typically do it. I think the Wednesday prior to high school graduate. Is that right, Pat?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a couple weeks out from that, but I think it's a good option to help them get this done. And we do have 4 graduates from last year that we're planning a ceremony. We're going to invite them to come. So, you know, if it were in a perfect world, I'd get my 10 and then the 4, but we'll do our best. So thanks.
Thank you. Jim?
Yeah, the driver's ed program that you're contemplating, would that be a full-blown program with training and ed, or would it be just classroom work?
So be training and driving. So we would have a teacher doing the classroom work and doing the driving with the students.
Okay.
So the max, you know, I think what I've been able to see from other adult ed offices is they are doing, you know, the max I think you can get in a classroom pre-COVID was 30 students. Adult ed's doing smaller classes. They're slightly less expensive, but they've still got waiting lists, and other driver's ed programs still have waiting lists. So
Would we have to buy any vehicles to do this, or can we
Yes.
lease them?
Yeah.
Or have you gone that far?
Based on what I've seen, they've you know, I can talk to you. One of the programs that runs their own is Mary Meeting out of Topsom and Bath, and they run classes. They have, I think, 3 vehicles that they run. They cover their insurance, and they, like I said, once they get past having to pay for the vehicle, they're able to do the regular maintenance, and they're clearing $3,000 to $4,000 in class. So, so again, it becomes a source of revenue, and it becomes, you know, they do a quality service that's not really hugely undercutting our local businesses, but slightly better price, and for some students, maybe a better atmosphere, being a little smaller.
Have you thought about possibly a bus driver training program?
Actually,
Everybody needs bus drivers.
Everybody needs, but you're right. I don't know. Marana Cook actually runs a CDL program. Steve Vos, who's the director up there in adult ed, he has actually been talking with Gabe and including me in that as support about how to train our own bus drivers in the coming year. How to he's already a licensed school for CDL, and particularly class, I think it's class B for buses and dump trucks. And so there's already strategy there. He's actually been a great resource for me, and because some of the things are similar with a regular driver's ed.
Yes.
But the equipment there is much more expensive. He's got a truck and a lot of diesel, and but
Okay.
so there, you know, yeah. So I think the collaboration that we have is an important piece. As adult ed, we're organized in the state by hubs, and so Kennebec area, Augusta, Waterville, Winthrop, Marana Cook, Gardner, we're all one hub. And so we often try to do things like that, where he's had a CDL program. He's trying to have an on-site course here and one in Waterville, so that he can support the schools in developing their own bus drivers. So it's a good question, and I think there's good work happening on that.
Thank you.
Other questions? I love that idea, Josh. That's sort of a bygone thing. Or when I was in high school 100 years ago, driver's ed was offered through the high school, and it was fun, and you did it with your classmates, and you did class time. I actually think one of my kids, who wasn't 100 years ago, more like 10, maybe a little more, did her driver's ed through the high school with a bunch of kids that she went to school with. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
It's keeps the community together, and I just think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I also want to say that adult ed graduation it's just so great. And watching the adults or the students that have chosen for whatever million reasons to not go through the traditional way of high school to get to the finish line is just really so enriching to me personally. I just love it because those are the students who really want to be there. There's
Mhm.
no, I have to go.
Yeah.
They just really know that in order to be successful and to find your place in life, there's just a couple things you need to do, and finishing high school is one of them. So
Mhm.
it's always my absolute favorite, that June evening when we come together and participate in that. So thanks so much
Yeah,
for
it is. I actually just got we got a call in the office from grandparents in Florida
oh
about coming up for they were like, how many people are going to be able to go? And I said, well, we're trying to figure out, because it's
yeah
not going to be huge, but they're, I think mom and dad and two grandparents, I'm like, trying to get it to 4. We have to figure those numbers, but they're really excited. It's definitely worth the celebration, and they do really know, and really do work hard to get there and know what they need to do.
yeah, they've made the decision to finish.
Yep.
That's just really, it's just so cool. I just love it. So thanks for loving
Yeah.
that.
Thanks. I will say, we'll bring this up with the other board, but I know we're pushing the graduation late, and I think in terms of expectations, we'd love to have a board member or two come. Obviously, we want to keep the numbers low, but I think someone's got a grandchild due, so they've offered to do a recorded message for us. Pat. So whatever worked, but I know we are pushing it late into the summer. So if you folks have plans, but we don't have any expectation that people are going to speak unless they want to say a couple things for a couple minutes. We'd love to have people there if they can, but it is much later than normal. And we'd love to see a couple of you if you could.
Josh, I will offer to do that. As I said, it's absolutely one of my favorite things. So I will offer to do that. And I don't know, I'll talk with Pat if she wants remarks or anything. I will happily contribute that as well.
Great. Thanks,
I'll
Becky.
yeah, sure. And I'll speak with the board and see if there's one other board member that feels really committed to it. And we'll see, but we'll also keep it fluid so that if one board member, I would much rather have every family member that wants to be there
Mhm.
than for us to take an extra spot. So we'll just keep that fluid as we get closer to it.
I'll keep you all updated about the numbers.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Josh.
Pat,
Excellent.
Pat, before we go on, I would like to go over some of the reports that we have for adult ed so that
Sure.
the board understands some of the challenges that we're facing with the revenue for this year, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So one of the documents that I sent to the board was the revenue, and adult ed is divided in actually 2 different funds or 2 different projects by the state. So the state considers enrichment half, and enrichment courses are courses like your basket weaving, I'm going to teach you how to paint, or actually how to get a driver's license. Those are enrichment courses. The other half of the program is in a separate fund as required by the state, and those are the instructional programs. That would be the GED program or the HiSET program, as well as the college program, as well as some of the other programs that we have around. What's important to know is that we actually use funds from the enrichment program to fund the instructional programs. And we actually use quite a bit of funds from that. And this year, it's proving to be challenging. If you look at the revenue report that I sent you on page 2, out of the $50,000 that was expected in enrichment revenue, we've only brought in $4,000.
Oh, wow.
So there's a significant decrease. So, which means I'm going to have to wait until the end of the year to see where we are as far as expenses for the program, and to see how much is left in carry forward. Typically in a typical year, the program would use approximately $8,000 in carryover. unlike the school budget where there's 3 or 4 million in carry forward, the adult ed program has approximately 60,000 in carry forward. So using 30,000 in carry forward for next year would obviously be a huge amount. And Pat, Josh, and I have discussed that he is correct, that we would not be able to sustain a math teacher unless our revenues and enrichment, and even with the revenues and enrichment as projected, we would need another revenue source. So we have discussed that. I wanted you to know before the end of the year where we are as far as the adult ed program. I think with carry forward, I think we'll be fine, but it's an ongoing conversation, and I did not want to surprise you with this at the end of the year. I still have expenditures that I need to accrue through the end of June, so I don't know where we will be until the end of the fiscal year. Questions? So oops, go ahead.
I just want to clarify. So I'm not saying anything. Andrea is absolutely right. And, we did have this conversation. We do not want to tax our carryover funds beyond this next year. And we need to get back to the revenue stream coming in. But we don't have that. We're only looking at $4,000 coming in revenue. On the flip side, we don't have the same level of expenses that we would in enrichment because we're not running them. So, I mean, those sides of the budget do balance. So we're just not adding anything this year. We're not coming up short $50,000.
No, not $50,000. But there's a transfer from enrichment that needs to go to the regular instructional program, which I don't think that we are going to be able to make. That transfer is approximately $17,000. And as you can see from the revenue report, there's only 4,000.
Right.
None of this is, this is not a blame game. This is the world that we live in COVID.
Oh, yeah.
We are not the only ones having this conversation. And I'm certain that we are not the only adult ed program that was unable to run enrichment classes. I just feel it is my responsibility to share this with you so that you are aware of where we might be or where we are at the end of the fiscal year. So that is why I'm letting you know how the two programs work together and what has happened as a result of COVID, not as a result of Josh, but as a result of the pandemic that we're in.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Ooh, you must feel better.
I just wanted to look at the worksheet one more time.
Mhm.
Andrea,
sorry.
can you pause? Colin had his hand up, and I'm just wondering if we could let him ask his question before we move on.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question about the enrichment revenue. I am embarrassed to say I don't know what the enrollment cycle looks like for that. So do you have a sense of what the coming year's enrichment enrollment might look like so we know if we'd be dealing with a 1 year or 2 year budget gap?
So,
You can weather almost anything for a year, but if we go into another
Right.
season with another loss of revenue, that hole gets a lot deeper.
so Josh, how many times is it twice, 2 or 3 times that you have classes? Twice?
So we tend to operate in a fall and a winter spring semester for enrichment cycle. And the thing that is really, when we talk about revenue, that is really can be really big for us are the trip pieces of those enrichment. So those we can make a good chunk of money revenue in that, and that may still be a little bit hairy next year. Though we're planning we're talking a lot about local and state outings for adults that we can do, as opposed to the travel that we used to do to Canada or down to Cape Cod or to a show somewhere in Boston.
A flower show in Boston and
Right.
yeah,
Right. So we're still planning a number of trips and moving down that way to hopefully, and hopefully a lot of people will still be interested in them. We'll just be doing a little more local. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I feel good about enrichment. We have a lot of instructors who kind of just said, nope, when this all started, nope, don't want to do that. And a lot of them are coming back around and like, yeah, I want to do this, even if I have to, I want to try this online now. Or I want to come back and do this in person, and they're okay. They've been vaccinated. There's a number of them. We have a lot of older folks who are seasoned folks. I shouldn't say seasoned, who are instructors, and I think they were much more cautious when we did this, and really not. I think that anxiety, they did not want to try the online piece either, which I think was more of a challenge for some of them. But we've had a few of them come around this semester, and a lot of them seem more willing and excited to get back to it when we look into the fall.
So 2 things, Colin. I definitely think that we can weather a year of this. I'm really hoping that next year it begins to pick up, like Josh said. And I wanted to let the finance committee know that Terry keeps texting me to turn my camera on. The reason that my camera is off is I have a naked 25-year-old walking back and forth to the bathroom. My bathroom is behind us. So I'm sure nobody wanted to see that. So when he's done doing his business, I will turn my camera back on. But I felt the need to explain. Sorry. Probably more
Thanks.
than anybody needed to know, but that's what I live with my 25-year-old son as well as my husband. So anyway.
I can guarantee you that your 25-year-old didn't want us to know that much.
Well, I'm probably not, but I wanted to explain why my camera was off.
You're perfect. I think that's hilarious.
Thank you.
We all have families and we all have circumstances. So
Correct. And I'm glad I could make Nicole laugh.
Josh, if I could leave you with a parting thought about the adult enrichment course, and I'm not pressuring you to do this at all. In between the Maine Outdoor Brands Association and a couple of the other industries that I sort of keep a tab on, the interest in travel and especially outdoor engagement opportunities is through the roof. Maine is probably going to see a record-breaking tourism season again. Having weathered the pandemic, people are desperate to do something interesting out of the home. So you might want to consider this an opportunity to grow that rather than something to be afraid about not hitting that revenue target. So that's your world to live into, but there's definitely appetite out there.
Great thoughts. I can see that coming. Thank you.
So Colin, how does that work? Is that virtual? Is that virtual enrichment, or is it?
No, to the extent that people can provide COVID-safe programming, it's a little bit of a paradox. As badly as some folks have been hit by job loss or economic downturn, there's an equal group of people who either maintain their jobs or they're on fixed incomes and didn't really lose that. Plus, they've seen stimulus checks, and in between being stuck at home, some of us stuck with our families for over a year. The opportunity to get out and socialize a bit more, especially when it's provided in a safe outdoor setting. I've definitely in my line of work seen bookings go through the roof. So the local market will be a little bit different, but I think if you ask your average person around here, if you gave them a chance to do something a little different, they just might say yes.
They just might. I don't know if this is appropriate to, it would be adults, but is it appropriate through its school district to do like winery tours and brewery tours and things like that? Because we have a gazillion of those.
Yeah, we've done those. We did a New Hampshire winery tour a couple years ago. Some of them have hit and some of them have missed. But in case you didn't know, and I just read this the other day, Maine has more breweries per person than any other state in the country at this point. So, so I have been considering trying to do a brewery tour. There are several right around us, local breweries. It comes down to can we travel? Do we travel to them? How do we get around during the day and in a safe way? There remain questions about do folks need to be vaccinated? And there's a lot of things that we have to hash out and discuss, I guess. But that definitely we have a brewery right here in Monmouth. I think it's definitely on my radar. So
Nice. Yeah, and there's a couple of little wineries in the Litchfield area too that are really kind of fun. So
yeah, we have Willows Awake, which is I think is at Leeds, and then we have
Leeds.
And then Grateful Grains is the brewery in South Monmouth, and so there's plenty of.
Yep.
There's others. Those are the two close by. So
excellent.
Yeah, thanks.
Tim.
Yeah, there's actually at least one that I know of, distillery in the area that does craft liquors and using maple syrup, and they're a fantastic little distillery. They do a nice job. They happen to be right here in Pittston. They're friends of ours, but they do a fantastic job right here in town. So something, if you're going to do a beer or wine, maybe talk to them, and I'll be happy to give you the contact information. They're good people to work with.
Great. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
There you go. And that answers the question of being locked up with your family for a year. Just need to lighten up a little. Okay, that's great. Any other questions or comments for Josh? I think it's just really important that we're able to keep adult ed alive. So while it's on life support, let's help it breathe as best we can. It's better than life support, but let's just do our very best to support as many programs as we can.
So Becky, I just wanted to go through the worksheet because it's the first time that the board has seen the adult ed worksheet.
Yes, ma'am.
So in the upper right hand corner, you see last year's budget of 300,000, and then you'll see where I broke out Fund 1500, which is his instructional programs. That budget is 213,320 and change. His enrichment budget is 100,000, so the total requested budget is 313,320.63, an increase of 4.44%, or 13,320.63. From his revenues, you see that he expects 50,000 in enrichment receipts and 50,000 in trip enrichment receipts. There is money in the district budget for extended day. If you remember when I went through the ED 279, that was such a thrilling discussion, but I discussed that there was money in the ED 279 from adult ed. So in kind, the district budget puts in 14,500 to appropriate to adult ed. Balance forward, which is the carry forward that we're using. We've already discussed that. And then there's a transfer actually from his enrichment program to the instructional program, which is what I talked about. It makes his two funds balance. He's expecting approximately 44, actually we know that that's the figure, $44,502.43 from the state as far as adult ed subsidy. His adult ed subsidy is actually based on his program expenditures. So unless he spends it in his instructional programs, not his enrichment, he doesn't get additional subsidy. So this is an ongoing thing that we'll talk about, Josh and I and Pat. So below you see, just like the district budget, you see the 3-year valuation for this year and last year and the percentage changes in the assessment to adult ed. So while the overall increase is $0 and 0%, there's a slight shift between the 4 towns based on their valuation. So I just wanted to go over that. with you and for anybody who might be watching. Questions? Okay.
Perfect. I see no hands up, so thank you, Andrea. All right then. Next on the agenda is the school. Yes, Pat.
Becky, before you move on, we need to have a motion from the Finance Committee to make a recommendation to the full board to approve the adult ed budget.
I was going to save it, but we can do it one at a time. That's fine. We'll just do this one right now. So I would entertain a motion if someone would like to make it to approve the adult ed budget as presented and bring it to the board for full board support.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jim. May I have a second, please?
I'll take a second that.
Thank you, Pat. And Pat Hopkins, would you please read the roll?
Sure. Becky Plus,
Yay.
Nicole Medor,
Yay.
Alyssa Tracy,
Yay.
Jim Lothridge,
Yay.
Patrick Saucier,
Yay.
Colin McGuff.
Yay.
It's unanimous, Becky.
Great, thank you so much. Next on the agenda is the school nutrition 2021 budget, 2021-2022 budget. And I see that we have Linda here with us tonight.
Yes, so we have Andrea who is going to present the budget, but Linda has joined us. So she is here and available as the director of our child services program, our child nutrition program rather. And so she can answer any questions you may have about the program as well. So I would turn it over to Andrea to kick us off.
So the school nutrition program, their budget's a little different than the way that we typically budget for the high school. So it starts off obviously budgeting our existing staff, and then we move forward from there. And basically the way that we budget everything else is based on trends and what she has spent in the past and what she has spent in the past year. The problem with that this year is unlike any other year. And last year wasn't a full year either. So in order to budget, I had to go all the way back to her last full year of expenditures and revenues. So in the adult ed budget, other than the staff members, there is money for breakfast, lunch, and a la carte, which the Department of Education calls non-reimbursables. It's a non-reimbursable meal, and they break it out by that. The other program that they have is special milk. So as you look through the budget, you will see it broken out into those categories because we're required to break it out into those categories. So what I do is I am constantly looking up until the time that we solidify her budget, what her expenditures are based on the number of student days we have. And like I said, this year and last year it was imperfect because last year we stopped having traditional lunch back in March. So I have gone back to the last full year and have done those calculations based on those expenditures. The district, in addition, also has an amount that it budgets towards its food service program. Traditionally, it's the amount of all of the benefits of her staff. So that amount is put in the budget, and we carry I transfer those revenues into her budget to bring her budget to zero. Her budget is not allowed to make any money. It is not self-funding, which is obviously the reason that we budget an additional appropriation in the district budget for her, but there are very few school lunch programs that are self-funding. In addition to the food and the staff, There's a small amount in here for equipment. Every year I ask Linda a piece that she'd like to replace. What we've all learned this year and from years prior is that school lunch equipment is very expensive. So typically we try to budget at least a piece a year due to their expense. Luckily, this year we're also going to be able to purchase a new dishwasher out of our federal ESRF monies that we have, ESRF or CRF monies, correct, Pat?
CRF.
CRF1. So that is going to take a $40,000 expenditure off our hands, the replacement of the dishwasher at the middle school.
That's $50,000. Sorry, it's $48,000 specifically. It's incredibly expensive.
So with everything that is said and done, Linda's budget overall, or the school nutrition budget overall, is up $4,000 or 0.37%, which is incredible. And you know, it's basically a guess. I'm guessing at the number of free and reduced students that we'll have. So we think of our funding sources for school nutrition. We have revenue from the feds for school lunch. We have revenue from the feds for free and reduced. We have revenue from the state, and we also have revenue from the parents or students, which is one and the same. So we're trying to guess how many students will eat and how much we will get for reimbursement, as well as how many kids will actually apply for free and reduced. So there's a lot of moving parts on this budget. So any questions about the budget piece? I know that I've just thrown a lot at you.
Colin has his hand up.
Thanks, Andrea. I really appreciate your work on this because, like, this is throwing a dart at a dartboard.
Correct.
But I'll ask a couple questions just for the sake of knowing. Your budget is built on the assumption that we're back to full-time education in person with a normal lunch schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you fold in any inflation increase in the cost of food on top of that 2-year-old budget?
I have not, but there's always, well, I didn't fold in a specific inflation percentage. However, I left a buffer in each of those accounts.
Okay.
The other thing that I know, Colin, is that every year we have never transferred the full amount from the district to the school lunch program. So I'm hoping that I have a budget there. However, this year is unlike, you know, we were talking about Josh's budget. It's unlike, we're not receiving any revenue from students or parents. So while we're getting additional revenue from the feds for doing the lunch program that we're doing, we have lost one of our revenue sources. And again, I won't know until the end of the year where we are. And like Linda and Josh, I mean, it's just a function of the times.
Yep.
So I'm really hoping that at the end of the year that we will not require any more than the amount that we have budgeted to transfer to that program.
I guess all I can ask then is, do you feel confident in the buffer you've created within the budget to operate inside of?
Honestly, I struggled for quite a while. I was really nervous that I was going to have to add 30,000 to the district budget, but I think I'm at a place where I'm comfortable.
Okay. Thank you. Again, I appreciate how difficult this is as a moving target.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, it sure is. Other questions for Andrea? Any
Maybe-
questions for Linda? Did you want to say something else, Andrea?
Well, I wanted Linda to say something. Maybe she could tell you about the piece of equipment that she purchased for next year's budget, if she doesn't mind.
Hi.
There she is.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
The steam table are you talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. At the high school, we need a hot food counter steam table out in our cafeteria. We have a 5-well one now that only has like 3 wells that work, and we use that daily. So which is a very expensive. The steam table itself only it was cost like $6,000, but then I have to add the sidebars, the tray, the sidebar that you can slide your tray on. I have to add the sneeze guards to it, which is over $2,000 for that, which is ridiculous. It's like buying a car and you don't have, you can't have brakes or anything on it. You have to buy it all separate. And the sneeze guard I have to have because it's mandatory to have that. But then we got a letter. Pat actually, I think, got the letter. I just got it in my email today. Actually, saying that we're getting more money. That they thought around over $5,000. So I asked, and we were able to put that towards the steam table. So at least we'll have half of that money, half of the steam table paid for with the money we're getting from DOE from that. So.
I have not received that email or letter yet. That's great news.
No. Yeah. I had one letter that said that the superintendent received it. And but I know
Not
that's DOE for you. And it's due tomorrow. But I've taken care of it. It's all
Sorry,
I think
Nicole.
we're all set with that. I've already submitted it and everything. So
Great.
we should be getting help with the new steam table. So hopefully all the equipment that I need, but every day my equipment breaks down with the 6 schools. You never know. Like I'm having somebody work on an oven tomorrow at Pittston. They just break down all the time.
So I will say Linda does a great job of maintaining her equipment. We struggle with the hard water at our schools. It does a number on a lot of our equipment between the steam tables and some of the other things. So it's a constant struggle. So we've tried to build in a few other precautionary pieces that will hopefully extend the life of the $50,000 dishwasher and the steam table, because these pieces of equipment are expensive and they're expensive to maintain. So we're trying to be good custodians of the equipment.
Colin, did you have another question? Your hand is up. $50,000. I mean, it's just one of those big metal boxes with the thing that goes up and down, right? With the whirligig in the middle. Yeah. And trays that slide through. Wow.
But again, we had to, we added certain components to it to address hard water, to extend the life. So that added to the overall expense of the item.
Which is great to do. I appreciate that.
Yes, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
So Andrea, do we need a vote on this budget as well? I'm not certain.
So it certainly wouldn't hurt. It doesn't go to voters separately, but it wouldn't hurt that the board passes it. So I think maybe in years past they have, so we may as well continue, or the finance committee rather.
Okay. So may I ask for a motion then, please, to approve the school nutrition budget as presented?
I'll make a motion to push this forward to the board, to the full board to vote on.
Thank you, Patrick. May I have a second?
Second by Alyssa.
Alyssa. Pat, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Becky Fless,
Yay.
Nicole Medor,
Yay.
Alyssa Tracy,
Yay.
Jim Lothridge,
Yay.
Patrick Saucier,
Yay.
Colin McGuff.
Yay.
It's unanimous, Becky.
Thank you, Pat. The final item on the agenda is the virtual budget hearing discussion.
So we discussed this at the last finance meeting. We said we would come back here, make a decision after the board had an opportunity to review some paperwork or an email that was forwarded from Andrea, from our attorney, and that we would come back here and have a discussion about it. Again, our options are to just have a virtual budget hearing, to have a in-person budget meeting. Those are really the two primary options. Andrea and I have spoken about this, and our recommendation is to move forward with a budget hearing versus an in-person budget meeting. Now, what that means, though, is that every individual warrant article will be sent to the voters, versus if we have an in-person meeting, you just have the one question that goes to the voters that says, do you approve the budget that was approved at the overall budget meeting? So there is a clear distinction there, but given the protocols that we have to have in place for social distancing, not knowing how many people are going to attend, we just thought it was probably easiest to have a budget hearing, which will be held virtually. So that would be our recommendation.
And are we recommending also the date of the budget meeting?
Sure, June
1st.
2nd.
June 1st, I believe.
June
It's
1st.
It's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And we can do it at 5:30 if the committee allows.
Yes. Because the referendum itself will be on Tuesday, June 8th. It's my understanding that in Gardner, the school budget will be the only thing on the referendum. I'm not certain about the other three communities. Colin?
I'm sorry, just so I'm clear, if it gets presented as separate articles within the referendum, each of which can be voted on, what functionally happens to the school budgets if one of the articles is rejected by the voters?
We would have to go back to the school board. Correct, Andrea?
So when we do the budget meeting, all the articles are voted on individually. When we do this new COVID format, they are not voted on individually. The budget is picked up as a whole, but there are additional questions. So if our budget fails, then we would need to go back and redo the process. So the ballot of last year was unlike any ballot that we had seen before. And my assumption is that we will, after I have a chance to talk to the attorney, my guess is that we will be using the same type of ballot for this year. So
and I have used that type of ballot in the past, Andrea, the previous district. And if a warrant article is voted down, then we would have to present the budget back to the board for reconsideration.
So I don't think that they're voting in the referendum on every single warrant article, but I will take a peek. But yes, you are right. We would have to go back and start the process all over again.
Okay, I don't want to jinx us. I wanted to know what kind of outcomes are possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim?
Yeah, Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong, and I very well may be. Weren't some of the individual articles kind of lumped together last year? So you voted on them maybe like, I'm thinking 4 or 5 different categories of articles, and they were lumped together and they were all voted on in that manner.
It was a format unlike I had ever seen, but I've only seen it in MSAD11. So, and this was the first time during COVID that I had ever seen this particular ballot. So I think it's something they are not typically allowed to use.
Yeah. As I remember, it wasn't terribly confusing. It worked out pretty well. I thought it was. I didn't get too much. In fact, I didn't get any negative comments about how we did it from anybody in the community, frankly. So, anyways.
Yeah, it's basically a style that's dictated to us from the state. It's not like we have flexibility. So.
No, I don't think it'll be that hard. I think it's a good idea.
So while we're talking about the budget, I included a few other documents. Did we want to discuss them, Pat, or?
Yes, I actually added that to the bottom of my agenda. At the last meeting, there was a discussion regarding the funding history in the MSAD11. So maybe if we could touch upon that. And also there was a conversation about the impact to taxpayers with the proposed budget. You've provided that documentation as well. So if you would take a moment to review both of those documents with the Finance Committee, that would be appreciated.
So the budget funding history actually goes back, it's 2 pages, but it actually goes back many more years than the actual pages do. So if you try to do the calculations on the last page, they don't add up exactly because there's probably 5 budget years missing. They're just actually hidden and there isn't enough room on the spreadsheet. So I wanted to explain that up front. But it's an ongoing calculation. So I'm just going to look at the second of the 2 pages because it happens to be the page that includes this year. So you see at the top, the subsidy, the miscellaneous revenue, and the local allocation. That is the top portion that makes up the revenue portion of the budget. So we see that this year's budget is proposed at 26,824,000, and last year's budget is 26,161. You can see what the total budget increase or decrease. Last year we had a 1.72%, and this year is a 2.54%. You can see the increase or decrease in state subsidy. Last year we received an additional 341,000 and change. This year we only received 58,000, which is making this budget year much more difficult. The local allocation, which is the amount that the locals had to pay. Last year, you will see a decrease of 27,000. We were fortunate enough to pass along an overall decrease to the 4 communities. You will see, however, that this year we are not so fortunate with our reduction in subsidy, and there is an increase of 6.36%. The lower half of the spreadsheet shows the increase or decrease by year to each of the 4 communities. So the amount, the top portion is their share, and whether below you can see whether or not it increased or decreased and the percentage. So, and then there's just those running averages that I mentioned that if you try to average out yourself, it won't tally because I have a bunch of years hidden. So I just wanted to mention that up front. So this is the document that we usually pass along at our annual budget meeting. Questions?
Jim, your hand is up.
No. All right.
I always appreciate this perspective, Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
It's very meaningful. And it's also important to remember the state funding that we're not receiving this year that we received last year, and just the impact that these several $100,000 have on our.
Absolutely. Ability. And I just want to mention that I have made our budget number a nice even number. So our budget, I've trimmed off $751.77 only because when you are writing this number as many times as I have to write it, we don't want to make mistakes, and carrying things out to pennies is not always an easy thing. So now our budget for this, and you will see that on the other documents that I sent to you. I sent you a new worksheet and a new expenditure. So that's what the difference is. The other document that we talked about that you asked to see was Jim, do you have your question?
Yes, I do.
I'll stop talking. Go ahead.
No, you can go and finish your thought. I'm fine.
That thought's gone, Jim.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
What is the exact loss of revenue to the thousands that we're losing from the state?
So
300,000, or where are
we
we at?
didn't actually lose revenue. We just didn't get as much. That's a better way of putting it.
Okay.
So, you know,
How
if
much
you,
didn't we get?
well, last year we got 300 and about 290,000 more than we got this year.
Okay.
So it just makes it difficult. And you know, we talk about our funding sources. Our only real funding sources are the state and the towns. I mean, we received a small amount from tuition. We get some money from SAC, but when the state doesn't give us as much as we'd like, it just makes for a difficult budget year.
Right.
Yep.
This year, the individual towns have been hit quite hard because I think part of it was at the evaluation that the state put on each one of the different towns.
Mhm.
Do you think that will level out next year? Will we see a smaller increase? Or do you think this is something we will be looking towards for next year or even the following year?
So I think with the housing market the way it is, I think the valuations for the towns are going to continue to increase, which is going to mean that the states, that the locals are going to have to fund additional monies. The other thing that I worry about is our per pupil count. Again, our ED 279, that revenue is based on students. And I am hoping, and I know that Pat is hoping as well, that we recapture all of those homeschool students that we lost this year. And if not, then the state finds a way of mitigating it. I know that a few years ago, they used to have like a slide. So if you lost all of those students, that you didn't lose them all at once, they did a 2 or 3 year average. You know, I think these are interesting times or challenging times for all of us. And I think it's difficult when a school district loses 100 students. It really makes a difference in revenue. So it's hard. And with 6 schools, it's not like we can just close one grade at a school because our students are spread throughout. It just makes life very difficult. So this is what we're stuck with this year.
Yeah. Thank you.
Unfortunately.
And just for clarity, Jim, we received about around I think it was $58,000 more in state subsidy this year. And so that was not enough to cover the increase for health insurance and wages.
Yep.
Andrea, I had a question for you related to that.
Sure, Colin.
And I apologize if this is a dumb question. I'm still trying to educate myself about RSU's function. Are we legally prohibited from either holding an endowment or additional investment income
Yes.
and or charitable fundraising?
Yep. Well, I guess we could fundraise, but we are prohibited what we're able to do with our funds because they're basically taxpayer dollars.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay. So the effect on taxpayers. So I sent this to you early this afternoon, and I just want to explain how it's done before I talk about what it is. So I request municipal calculation sheets, municipal tax calculation sheets from each of the 4 communities. It's the calculation that they need to submit to the state in order to set their mill rate. So for those of you who, I think everybody here knows what a mill rate is, but mill rate is how our property taxes are determined. And it also happens to be the way that our towns or our 4 communities are assessed for their local allocation. So when I get this municipal tax form, it basically is the total taxable valuation. So it takes the entire community and says, tell me how much your community is worth. And then what the other thing that I'm looking for on the form is the community's entire expenses. So the expenses to run the town or the city, as well as their expense to the budget. So one divided into the other creates the town's mill rate. So the assumption that I'm making when I do this form is that the town's valuation is going to stay the same. I do not know whether the town is going to revalue the community. What I do add is the additional monies that the town has to pay in order to meet the new proposed budget as set by the district. So it basically increases the mill rate, the amount assessed to the locals. I know this is a lot. So what I'm going to tell you is the amount per thousand that it's going to increase the taxpayers based on our budget alone. It does not include any other expenditures that the town may have. I have no knowledge of that. They're still trying to do their budgets. So it only includes the increase in the allocation for the district. Again, I apologize. So for the city of Gardner, the increase in our budget is about 61 cents per thousand. For the town of Pittston, it's about 83 cents per thousand. The town of Randolph, it's 66 cents per thousand. And the town of West Gardner, it's about 57 cents per thousand. So if you look at my form or the document that I shared with you and that is on our website, it is saying that if you have a piece of property that is valued by the town, and I don't mean assessed, because the valuation when you're purchasing or selling your house is obviously different than the amount that the town or the city values your property at, and that is what I'm talking about. So if the valuation of your home or your property is $100,000, in the city of Gardner, the increase in our budget will increase your taxes by $61.60. If it's a $200,000 home, you would double that. So it's $123.20. And for a $300,000 home, it will be an increase of about $184.80. Mind you, that is only the district's increase to their property taxes. So for the town of Pittston, it's $83.20 per 100,000 of valuation. 200,000 is about $166.39, and 300,000 valuation is $249 and change. The town of Randolph, $66.27 for $100,000. 200,000 would be double that, or $132.54. 300,000, $198.81. The town of Randolph, which I wish I lived, their mill rate is extremely low, and they are fortunate. For a $100,000 valuation, the increase is $57.37.
And Andrea, I'm sorry to interrupt. That's West Gardner, not Randolph.
Sorry, West Gardner. Yep, thank you. $200,000, it's about an increase of $114. And for a $300,000 property, it would be an increase of about $172. This includes both the district's assessment and the adult ed's budget. So it's everything that we are passing along to each of our 4 communities. Questions? I know it's a lot.
Colin, did you have your hand up? I'm not trying to call you out. I just want to make sure you get your questions answered.
No, it's me. I wish that thing would toggle itself off, but it doesn't.
All right, it needs to be voice activated. So as soon as you speak, it just goes away. Yeah.
So this is where we are.
It is where we are. Jim.
Andrea, can you tell me on these papers where I find the actual total we're going to be assessing each town? I'm a little confused.
So it's right at the top, Jim. So you have I sent you 2 new worksheets.
Yes.
So if you add if you add the adult ed worksheet and the regular budget worksheet for each of the 4 towns, that total should equal the total proposed on the top of the effective taxpayer form. Does that make sense, Jim?
I'm still a little lost. Rather than try to get educated while everybody sits around and watches me fuddle around, I may give you, is that okay if I give you a call and you could explain it to me?
Absolutely. But
Okay.
on this form, it includes both the district and the adult ed assessment, and they're added together. So
Okay,
if you
thank you very much.
add those 2 worksheets, you should get the same number. And if you don't, then I have a problem, but I'm hoping you do.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I've got nothing else, Beck.
Really good questions, everyone. Thank you. And thanks for paying attention and actually reading the sheets. That's really good. Good work. Okay, Pat, is there any other?
I don't have anything else for the agenda. That's all that I had written down.
Okay. Future agenda items? Well, yes.
Sorry, I had one last one, so I apologize. This is unrequested feedback. If we have any flexibility in how we present the articles when this does come before town managers and the public, I just wanted to put it out there. I think we might do well to show the budget total in terms of a pie chart so people can see ratios. I just fear looking at it, people will jump on seeing an administrative percent increase without recognizing that that is a very small piece of the overall actual allocations. So I would just hate people to focus on the wrong thing, which is we're trying to maintain the best we can for the students and for the staff in particular. And those percentage numbers can be confusing if you don't really read them.
So on the warrant articles, we don't have that flexibility. However, when we distribute our brochure, we do use pie graph. So you can see that. And as a reminder, the administration line is increasing a bit more than any other line because we added $50,000 in for an assistant principal, who is very much needed out at Helen Thompson.
But Colin, you're right. We need to stress that when the budget booklet comes in the mail, that people really pay attention to it.
So I'm also hoping that Pat will do, when we do our hearing, that Pat will prepare one of her lovely budget PowerPoints, and we can include that pie chart that we also include in the budget brochure. I will make sure that I get that to her. And you're right, system administration is 3% of our budget, and that's pretty amazing. I don't remember off the top of my head what the percentage is for school administration, but relative to the other percentage, they are very small.
Pat, in the past, we have had a meeting where we invited all of the city councilors and boards of selectmen to come together. Are we going to consider doing that this year through a Google?
That is board driven, so it's entirely up to the board if you would like to do that or not.
So I guess I would start here with the finance committee, since this is our budget that we're passing on to the full board with a recommendation. What are your thoughts around? So what we have done in the past is we have invited the mayor of Gardner and the city council, and then the boards of selectmen from each of the other communities to come together in the boardroom and ask questions while we present the budget to them so that they can feel included, so that they feel included. And it's a little different than how some districts do it, but this is our structure. So I would leave it to you, finance committee members. What do you think? What are your wishes?
I agree with that, Becky. I think as long as it's one meeting and they're all invited, we're not doing separate 4 meetings. We don't need more meetings than we need, right? I think that's good for transparency.
I completely agree with the one meeting. Absolutely. Because also it changes every time you do it. You know, if we do one in every community, it gets, even though the numbers are the same, the questions are different, and the way that people hear it can be a little bit different. So I think one meeting, one time is the best way that we have found to accomplish this. So I don't know that we need a thumbs up, or I mean an actual vote, but maybe we could just do a thumbs up or to take it to the board to that we would like to do that. By invitation only to come hear how the budget works. Great. That looks like a unanimous thumbs up. So I'm sorry to add one more thing to your day, Pat, but may I add one
Oh,
more?
that's totally fine. You and I can have a follow-up conversation to look at calendar and
Yep.
to see which night would work best.
Yes, perfect. I know it would be helpful while we do that, before we get off of here. I know the City Council in Gardner meets on Wednesday nights. What are the, what about your Randolph, Kidston, and West Gardner? Do you know when your, yes, Jim?
Pittston Work meets on Wednesday at 6 o'clock, so that'd be no problem. We'd be the same as Gardner. Is this going to be done before? I think it's a great idea. I believe we should invite the select people and the city council. Will this be done prior to our virtual meeting that we're going to have? Is that the idea?
Yes.
And then will that particular type of meeting be in person, or will it be also a virtual meeting?
I would think, because I would think it would be virtual.
Okay.
I think that's at this, I mean, everything we're doing is virtual right now, and I don't know that we have a space that is conducive for that at this point in time.
That's fine. That's good. Thank you.
Not having seen one of these before and not knowing exactly how they're presented, it would be lovely to be able to present this as a benefit, not an expense.
Right.
I mean, I realize the cost comes to the town, but if there was ever a year to really show support for the kids, this was it. So I don't know if there's any elements of student success or faculty success that could maybe lead off that meeting to show people that, yep, we're paying for it, but you are absolutely getting a vital, critical service to the community, and you should feel proud about paying for it.
Colin, I think you're right, and it really is a, I'm sorry, my dog. It really is a benefit to our community that we have this, and that we're proud of it, and that it's working for us, and it's working for our kids. So I think that that's a great idea. So when we talk about that, Pat, let's remember to.
Perhaps one of the things we could highlight is the number of students we have fed through this pandemic, how we continued to feed students. I know that Linda and the school nutrition department were pushing out lunches and breakfast. And so I really think that while it's not educational, I think it's, Pat?
Yeah, no, I'm sitting here thinking about possible ideas, and we do include in the brochure that we distribute, we include a page from each building, just of some of the successes experienced by our students and our faculty. And so we can draw upon those potentially. I'm also thinking about the remote instruction and the synchronous instruction that we did in our district. I hear from others that we did a pretty decent job with that in comparison to some other places. I don't want to put down any other district at all. I think everyone absolutely did their best. I just feel like it was a potential success of ours. And so that may be an opportunity.
I mean, just to speak from the heart as a parent of a pre-K student, being able to do school, whether it was remote or in person, is about the only highlight of the year. So many other things just went away.
Mm.
I think we've really done a great job as novices, not having all of us ever having done any of this before. And I think it's important also to recognize that we're planning to continue to find ways to do it for our students that learn best that way. So it's not something that we've done this year and then we're going to just do away with it. We're really working at educating our kids into the future, which is so critical to learn in a period of time when we've lost, as you say, Colin, all the many things that our kids have lost. Yes, Jim.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to have my granddaughter here for 3 days of virtual education while my grandson was at his house. They're not far away. And the product that we delivered was fantastic. I watched my granddaughter work with the teacher. She was on topic. She worked hard. I don't know how they did it, frankly, but they did a fantastic job. And I think that's one thing that we should strongly promote, because not we personally, not me, but the teachers did a fantastic job, and the administration with Terry and the full administration getting the funding for it. I think we did it. I don't think anybody did a better job. And so we should toot our horn on that one, because we did a pretty darn good job. So thank you.
So it looks like Monday nights are
Yes.
the only nights where there would not be a conflict. So Becky and I will need to look at our calendars.
Yeah.
And we'll need to do that soon, Becky, because invitations will need to be sent.
Correct. Yep. So we can work on it tomorrow.
Probably not.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I am so booked tomorrow with back-to-back meetings.
As soon as I said it,
Yeah, maybe Thursday, Friday, my schedule looks much better.
okay.
But this week, let's make a point of doing it this week.
Either sometime Thursday or Friday morning.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So does that sound, does that meet with everyone's approval? Excellent. Great. All right, then. I think that's all that we have. Alyssa, you had to move outdoors. There's so much activity happening in your house.
Yeah, my son's riding his bike, and I figured today's a good day for that, right?
It's a perfect way to ride your bike.
Yes.
Excellent.
I'm looking at you, and I think I'd rather be outside. It looks really nice.
You look really nice out. It's sunnier at your house than mine. That's all right.
I've been inside all day on a screen, so when I got done and jumped on, I came out here.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. All right. Well, I won't keep everyone at 7:07, and I like to respect your time. So thank you all so much for your input, for your questions. Yep, here we go. It's a year like none other. Normal is out there somewhere.
Yes. Thank you, Andrea and team. Appreciate it. Always well presented.
Thank you very much. Very good job.
Thank you.
All right. Well, then, good night, everyone, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.